Hello, YouTube family. Thanks for joining me on this episode of my channel. And as you can see by the graphic to my left, this show is going to be about or dealing with Tucker Carlson and his ridiculous show on Fox News. And first, I want to get to a video from Tucker.
And welcome to Tucker Carlson tonight. We've heard an awful lot about the coronavirus vaccine over the last several months. It's a massive achievement as a scientific matter, something all Americans can be proud of, but that's not the context in which we've heard about it. Joe Biden's first speech to the country urged the entire population to take this vaccine immediately. The celebrity industrial complex has reinforced that demand ever since. Get the shot! Get the shot! Get the shot! Okay, we will. We're not against it on principle. Like almost every American, we're grateful for vaccines. But before we take this one, a few questions about it, about this specific vaccine. There are two things we'd like to know, and neither one has anything to do with how many professional athletes or Netflix stars have been vaccinated so far. We don't care. It's irrelevant. Here's what is relevant. The first question, is the vaccine safe? The second question, is it effective? For example, in early March, Texas ended its lockdowns and its mask mandates completely. The governor of California, looking over at the state to which his whole population is moving, called this move absolutely reckless. Vanity Fair, which, believe it or not, was once a magazine, published a story with the headline, "Republican Governors Celebrate COVID Anniversary with Bold Plan to Kill Another 500,000 Americans." Tony Fauci, who apparently still reads Vanity Fair, he's the only one, agreed. Quote, "It's just inexplicable why you would want to pull back now." Inexplicable? Well, here's an explanation. We have a vaccine. Isn't that the point of the vaccine? So we can pull back now and get back to normal life? Whatever, shut up. An epidemiologist called Whitney Robinson jumped in immediately to back Fauci up. Quote, "I feel genuinely sad. There are people who are going to get sick and die because of avoidable infections they get in the next few weeks. It's demoralizing." Over at CDC, Rochelle Walensky pleaded for Americans to ignore the promised effects of the vaccines they are now required to get. "Please hear me clearly," she wrote. "At this level of cases with variants spreading, we stand to completely lose the hard-earned ground we have gained. I am really worried about reports that more states are pulling back the exact public health measures we've recommended to protect people from COVID-19, end quote.
Eating and drinking indoors in restaurants and bars, is that okay now?
No, it's still not okay for the simple reason that the level of infection, the dynamics of infection in the community are still really disturbingly high. And if you are vaccinated, please remember that you still have to be careful and not get involved in crowded situations, particularly indoors where people are not wearing masks.
That's not what we expected at all to hear. But the CDC has affirmed that Fauci is right. According to the CDC's new guidance, once you've been vaccinated, you still cannot, quote, attend medium or large gatherings. The federal health authorities also recommend that you continue to wear your mask when you go outside. How long will this continue? Well, according to Yahoo News, experts say it's, quote, not entirely clear when it will be considered okay for people who are fully vaccinated to stop wearing masks. At some point, no one's asking this, but everyone should be. What is this about? If vaccines work, why are vaccinated people still banned from living normal lives? Honestly, what's the answer to that? It doesn't make any sense at all. If the vaccine is effective, there is no reason for people who have received the vaccine to wear masks or avoid physical contact. So maybe it doesn't work and they're simply not telling you that. Well, you hate to think that, especially if you've gotten 2 shots. But what's the other potential explanation? We can't think of one. In fomenting some of those views, those questions about medicine people are asking you to take? Right. If you've got questions, you're a right-wing extremist QAnon bigot. Got it. That's their position. No more questions. Shut up. Thankfully, this is still a free country, or at least tonight we're going to pretend it is. We do have questions. They're very simple. Is the vaccine safe? Is it effective?
So that is Tucker Carlson doing his best to try to argue that it's completely okay to just question the vaccine. And that's coming from him, a guy with a TV show. He's like, I'm just asking questions. I just want to know the answer to these questions. And I'm going to pose these questions on my nationally televised TV show on cable news. I mean, what we have to look at is, one, Tucker Carlson has a staff of folks who completely have the ability to find the answers to all of those questions. It's not that difficult, honestly. I mean, he has people working for him who can find the answers that he's questioning. It is truly not that difficult. You know, it's as simple as this. You know, you just go online. You go online and you look up the answers. That's how simple it is. You know, I mean, he's got a staff of people working for him who can find all of the answers. If they're having any difficulty, honestly, he has one of the most watched shows on cable television. He can have the director of the CDC on. He can have Dr. Fauci come on. He could have a nurse, a doctor, an epidemiologist, someone who has an expertise and knowledge in this to explain the things he's asking. And that's what I wanted to bring up. Rather than Tucker Carlson giving you the answers to questions, he's giving you questions. He is fomenting the idea of questioning the vaccine. The legitimacy, the effectiveness, the safety. He's giving you the legitimacy of questioning the vaccine by doing it himself. Making it out like, we can't think of any reason why you could have a vaccine that's already been put out, and when people are fully vaccinated, they still have to wear masks. You know, rather than having an epidemiologist come on, or a nurse come onto a show and answer that question. That someone who's been fully vaccinated can still get the virus, can still pass the virus to other people. The thing behind the mask is you wear the mask so you don't spew droplets into the air that someone else can breathe in and potentially catch the virus. Because even though you may be fully vaccinated, someone at a neighboring table at a restaurant may not be. Plus, we have the new strains of coronavirus that are going around. Some of them are pretty bad, and you don't want to get those. And doctors are still in the process of researching to see the vaccines. Are they effective against the variants? How effective? You know, are there some variants that they're effective against? Some they're not. And so, I mean, just like early on in the pandemic, you had people on the Fox News who were bringing up issues with the coronavirus talk. You know, and that's what Tucker Carlson's doing right now. He's doing the exact same thing. Just going to bring up some issues. Going to bring up some issues that he has with the coronavirus stuff, because that's what his viewers want, honestly. That's honestly what his viewers want him to do, is to not tell them you should get vaccinated. He wants his viewers want him to say, no, question it, don't trust it. I mean, the truth is, Tucker Carlson's going to get the vaccine. He probably has already been vaccinated because he's rich and prominent, and he has access to things you and I do not. So, yeah, most likely Tucker Carlson has been vaccinated. And me, yesterday I got my second COVID shot, so I am fully vaccinated as of yesterday morning. And I'm glad of it. I'm thankful for the fact that I was able to get vaccinated, and now I'm able to breathe a little bit more of a sigh of relief. But again, I don't have a problem putting on a mask when I go out somewhere, because I realize why we should still wear masks, why we still have to have our guard up. Tucker Carlson has a guy on regularly named Alex Berenson. Alex Berenson comes on to talk about science, even though Alex Berenson has no degree in science. He's not a doctor, he's not a nurse, he's not a scientist of any kind. He has a degree in history and economics, and his history is as a writer. He was a writer for the New York Times. He's written some fictional novels. And Berenson goes on Tucker Carlson's show to also help push the narrative of distrust against the virus, against information coming from the government on the vaccine and the virus. And Berenson on Carlson's show has made false statements, including that people have died in Israel from the vaccine, which is not true. That people in Israel are dying from the vaccine. There are people who have been vaccinated who have then died, and the officials in Israel are looking to see whether there's any causality for that. But just to say that the vaccine killed them, that's not true. There's no evidence of that. Carlson has claimed that authorities are lying about the vaccine, with no empirical proof of lies that authorities have said about the vaccine. He claimed that the government is using the vaccine as social control. They're controlling how we interact socially through the virus and the vaccine. And he claims that Bill Gates has extraordinary powers over what we do with our bodies, which is just a nod to online conspiracy theorists who watch Tucker's show. That his show is for the most ignorant, right-wing, conspiracy theory-laden, racist, xenophobic people on the Republican base. I mean, that's what Tucker Carlson's show has been lined up for. And Tucker had talked in one of his episodes about the smallpox vaccine. Like, there was something phenomenal. The smallpox vaccine, that was phenomenal. Smallpox vaccine had an effective rate of 95%. Same as the COVID vaccines. Side effects from the smallpox virus range from mild to life-threatening. So far, I don't know that there's been any deaths from the COVID vaccine that have been traced to be directly related to the vaccine. Somebody got the vaccine and died. I know there have been a couple of deaths that someone got vaccinated and within a couple of weeks ended up passing away. And so people ask the question, is there causality? And that's being looked into. You have the issue with, I believe it was blood clots and the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Out of millions of Johnson & Johnson vaccines that were given, there were like 6 to 8 people who had more severe side effects. Not death, but more severe side effects. And so they paused the Johnson & Johnson vaccine to see if there's any causality between these more severe side effects and the vaccine, or if it was just coincidence that out of the millions of people who had gotten the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, you had this small group that also had something else going on that ended up showing up after they got the vaccine. Because, let's face it, 6 out of millions of people, I think it's around 7 or 8 million people who had gotten the vaccine from Johnson & Johnson, and like 6 to 8 people that had severe side effects. Tucker Carlson's pushing the conspiracy theory stuff. Tucker Carlson is wasting his time on television asking questions that he could be providing the answers to. He could have guests on to answer those questions. He could have his staff look up the answers to those questions. It is not difficult. You can do it online. I've done it myself. And Tucker Carlson could have people on his show to answer those questions. He could have his staff look up the answer so he could provide his audience with the answer. But that's not the goal of his show. The goal of his show is to feed these super right-wing conspiracy theory nuts who want more verification that their ridiculous view of the world is correct. And so that's why you have someone with the resources of Tucker Carlson, a whole staff behind him, booking agents, people that can bring on whatever guests he wants, people who can look up any data he wants looked up. He's not going to have them do that because he's going to go on his show and ask questions rather than provide answers to the questions. And that's the point. Tucker Carlson does not do news. Tucker Carlson does not have any value in the news sphere. None at all. There's no value to his show. And Tucker Carlson has had lawyers explain that explicitly in court. When Tucker Carlson was sued some time ago for defamation, in court his lawyers literally argued that his show is entertainment. That a reasonable person would not look at his show and believe it's news or believe that he's presenting truth or factual information. They argued in court that what Tucker Carlson does is entertainment. However, I would argue that his viewers view it as something much different than just entertainment. That's how they believe they're getting news. That's how their perspective of the world is being shaped. And it's being shaped by a fraud. Someone who is on television making like a news guy, but he's not a news guy. He's someone who's just going to feed your conspiracy theory and your own distrust. And I get it. There's a lot of reasons to distrust the government. But when it comes to stuff like this, scientists, they don't have these crazy agendas. You know, doctors, nurses, they don't have these crazy agendas. They're just trying to do what's right medically for your health. And they're not going to spin some crazy narrative. There's no massive conspiracy theory involving doctors and nurses and scientists and the government and Bill Gates where they're trying to put some kind of damn chip into your body. It's a vaccine to deal with a virus. The virus is unfortunate. Luckily, we have a vaccine to deal with it. And when Tucker Carlson goes on his show and says, I'm going to ask a bunch of questions and leave it to you to say, yep, no, we shouldn't trust it. Tucker Carlson don't even know the answer. There's a reason why he does that. And that reason is to foment this distrust. Because now there's a Democrat in the White House. If Trump was in the White House, I would assume Tucker Carlson would be pushing the vaccine as long as Trump was. But he has no political reason to push the vaccine because he doesn't support the guy in the White House. And so he's going to go on his show and ask questions and then be like, well, it's just asking questions. What's wrong with asking questions? Well, there's no problem with asking questions. Unless you have the ability, the capacity to get the answers to those questions, then there's a big problem with asking the questions. Why aren't you just getting the answers if you have the ability to get the answers? That's what I've got to say on that. Tucker Carlson, his show is garbage. Thanks for watching. Please like the videos, please subscribe, and have a good day.